On this episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, I welcome Dr. Rainey Briggs to the Buck and Honey's remote studios. Dr. Briggs spent over 20 years in public education, most recently as superintendent in Baraboo, Wisconsin. A troubling incident in 2024 led to a decision to step away from his role. Since then, he has been at peace. With a new book and a renewed sense of purpose, Dr. Briggs shares his story of courage and strength, and stepping back is the strongest move forward. This will be a good one. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. What is up? Wherever you are or whatever you are doing, I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to another episode of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Decora. We are in the Buck and Honey's remote studios on the east side of our great capital city of Madison, Wisconsin. You can listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, and YouTube at Survive and Thrive 8791. You can follow the podcast on Facebook at Survive and Thrive 8791, as well as I think Instagram. Don't forget to hit that subscribe or follow button wherever you listen to the show. Leave me a comment if you like what you heard. If there's a topic or you know a guest who would love to tell their story, email me at tdecora@gmail.com. I'm glad you could join us today. Our mission is to share stories and conversations that make you cry, laugh, and think, stimulating emotions, creating laughter, and inspiring the mind. A new episode will air on Monday and Thursday morning featuring a wide range of guests. The podcast will touch on many subjects such as grief, trauma, loss of a loved one, recovery, professional setback, mental illness, success despite challenges, etc. Our guests will share how they learn to survive and thrive. All right, here is our episode guest and intro. According to the internet, and the internet is always right, correct, Rainey?
Absolutely.
This dude says absolutely. Well, if you're in my house, I don't need the internet. I don't need Google. I don't need Alexa. I have my wife, and she's always right.
No, I agree with you on that because I look at it and say my wife is always right as well.
Absolutely. Happy wife.
Happy life.
Happy life. According to an AI artificial intelligence overview, men are increasingly changing careers in their late 40s. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says that between the ages of 35 and 44, Americans change jobs an average of 2.9 times. According to Goodwin University, and I had to look where the heck is Goodwin University, East Hartford, Connecticut. While a career change at 40 might seem daunting, it's becoming more common as people seek fulfillment, check, better work-life balance, check, or a new financial path. And that could hopefully be a check for my guest today, Rainey Briggs. Today, I welcome Rainey Briggs to the Buck and Honey's remote studios. Raised in Madison, Wisconsin, Rainey attended Madison Edgewood High School and is a proud Crusader. After graduating from high school, Rainey would take his talents to Mankato State University in Minnesota, where he received a football scholarship. Upon receiving his degree in health, science, and corporate and community fitness, Rainey would wear many hats. Well, some hats we just talked about in the professional world before the educational world would come calling and lure him into public education. In 2021, Rainey would reach the pinnacle of public education, in my mind, when he became superintendent of the Baraboo School District in Baraboo, Wisconsin, a job he would hold until February of 2025, when he decided to leave Baraboo. Today, I'm so glad you could join us. Rainey Briggs, what is up?
Man, what's up, man? I'm excited to be here and absolutely a proud Crusader.
Yeah.
Loved Edgewood.
And we've talked about before Coach Zwettler. I'm a huge Coach Z fan.
Yeah, Coach Z, really great guy. Did a great job coaching over there at Edgewood and coaching me, and then Coach Minert in football.
Coach Al, yeah.
It's actually going into the, Wisconsin Hall of Fame for coaches here in a few days, actually.
Oh, really?
I think it's June 4th.
June 4th.
Yeah.
Well, if you see Coach Minert, tell him I said congratulations. He's one of the good guys in the area. Summer is right around the corner. What are you looking forward to this summer?
Man. I'm really looking forward to relaxing a little bit and enjoying the summer with my wife and kids, and just doing some things different than we've done in the past, because I've always been looking forward to the school year starting, even at the start of summer, to be prepared and looking forward to having things kind of start differently, and that I don't have to worry about this summer as a superintendent. So I'll focus a little bit more on that, and again think about my own peace and of mind and fun with my family.
Yeah, I went through the same exact thing you're talking about right now. Last summer, June 7th, I retired from teaching and the wrinkles started going away, and the smile came back, and the personality perked up, and it was a good summer because as soon as you shut the doors on one chapter, it seems like the next chapter starts to open up. And
Absolutely.
what are we going to do? Maybe take June off a little bit, and then July and August. Definitely August, you're back into it. A graduation is around the corner. I know you've had an opportunity to touch many lives. Are you going to be hitting any graduation parties at all this spring?
Yeah. I mean, I was just at a graduation party yesterday. Some kids who went to school, obviously, with my own kids, and they had some parties yesterday. And then there's some coming up over the next, few weeks that I'll be attending, and I'm celebrating with those students their success of graduating and moving on to college or whatever career that they decide to go into.
I always say mix in a salad.
Absolutely.
So the banquet season tends to put on some pounds. In 2021, and this was really cool, not only did you share it with me, but I always like to do a little fact checking of my own just to make sure that we're squeaky clean here. But Madison 365, a nonprofit online news outlet in Madison, Wisconsin, named you one of the most influential Black leaders in 2021. Mm-hmm. How did that all come about?
It's one of those things, man, where I really think Madison 365, they do a lot of research and reaching out to people to learn stories and learn about the connections that individuals have in the community and also have within the educational world and the impact that they're having. And it was actually a surprise to me. It ended up online and people started commenting, and then it ended up getting to me. So they don't really call you the day before or anything like that to let you know. So
there's no red carpet deal.
No red carpet deal. But I think it's one in which they've done their work to really find out who you are. And then when they put it out, it's kind of like a surprise to you as well, despite you knowing all the work that you do. The connection you have with the community, connection you have with kids, connection you have with some of the different organizations. And it was really heartfelt. Knowing that you're having that level of an impact that someone or some people or people around the state see you as someone that has contributed in a way that's been really supportive of families, kids, communities, things of that nature.
Yeah, I was looking through that list of people, and there were some pretty good individuals, and the one that I recognized was Calvin Barrett.
Oh, Barrett, Great guy. Great guy.
There is one other statistic, and you and I met a couple of weeks ago, a month ago at Starbucks, and we talked about, and I asked you the question, how many African-American Black superintendents are there in the state of Wisconsin? And you said, you gave me some numbers.
Yeah. There's right now about seven. Out of 421, right? And those are superintendents of color. So I don't want to say that someone that is Hispanic or Native American or whatever doesn't fall into that person of color or Black side. But I will say that just looking at the people of color that are leading school districts, there's seven. I think there was about 8, but I think I'm out of the game.
Change that number.
You can go back and think about Dr. Jenkins. He's out of the game. The superintendent that was up in Green Bay, he's out of the game here in the state. And there's a couple others that have kind of moved around or retired or left the field. But right now, I think they're sitting at about 6 or 7 right now.
I know there's one that's near and dear to my. Actually, there's 2 that are near and dear to my heart. Monica Kelsey Brown. I retired from Wanakee Community School District, and she came in. And I don't know if she made this a high priority. I like to think she did.
Yeah.
That she reached out and picked up the phone or took my call, and we had an opportunity to meet. But you know what? I found out that she's that way with everybody. I thought it was just me.
Yeah. No, there's some amazing people in those superintendent positions. You got Dr. Monica Kelsey Brown. You got Dr. Willie Garrison in Beloit. You got Dr. Killarity over in Verona. You got my man Mark down in Janesville. You have a young lady over in Brown Deer. That's just a few to name. And they've been amazing superintendents in the state and working with each other and me being a part of that as well. It's just been really, really awesome to have that cohort.
And it seems like not only are they grabbing superintendent jobs, but they're also extending that a little further and being on committees and things around the state besides their own school district. The guy that is near and dear to my heart is Carl Morin. Yeah. He's up at, it used to be called Maple Northwestern, but it's now just Northwestern School District, just south of Superior. He's native. Okay. And he has been leading that district for a couple of years now, and he also sits on the WIA Board of Control. Yeah. Not only are they making an impact in their communities and their school districts, but they're also trying to just be out there a lot more.
Yeah, and perspectives matter. You know, like you can't always have just one side of the coin that you always look at and listen to. There's other perspectives that can have an impact on what we want to see, not only through our societal lens, but also just through our personal lens of being in those spaces and being on those different committees and boards and things of that nature. So it is really important to have the different perspectives in relationship to that.
And learning from other
100%
other superintendents that are out there. Before we get to your story, and there's some great stuff here, I need to talk about our sponsor. Our sponsor, Buck and Honey's Restaurants, are a place that people can escape to. For me, it's a great escape from cooking dinner. Do you cook?
Oh yeah, man. I'm a big time smoker, man. I love to smoke meats. You know, I'm doing a couple briskets this week and some pulled pork. My daughter's having a baby shower, and I guess now baby showers have become like kind of like weddings where they're huge, I guess, you know. So I'll be doing some brisket.
Smoke it.
Yeah.
With their great food and drink menu, 5-star customer service, and a welcoming and vibrant atmosphere, people keep coming back with locations in Sun Prairie, Monona, Waunakee, and Mount Horeb. Most communities in the Dane County area, and that's Madison area, can get to a Buck and Honey's within 10 to 15 minutes. And here I do a little drum roll. And I have a very acoustically sound table. Have you been to Buck and Honey's?
You know, I've been to Buck and Honey's many times. Many times. I will say there used to only be one. And I lived in Sun Prairie for 12 years. And I would always go to Buck and Honey's because there was a tie to Buck and Honey's with the Prairie Athletic Club.
Oh, yeah.
So that connection and that tie and really understanding that history and knowing how they were connected and why they were connected was really cool. And then to see these Buck and Honeys popping up in different places now, man, they have some of the best fish I've ever had. When I look at their Friday fish fry, man, I love it. It's one thing that I really enjoyed doing over there. And then, of course, old fashions, you know, they make some of the best old fashions. So I'm a big old fashioned guy.
They make those old fashions because of smoking.
Yes.
Have you ever had where they put the old fashioned in the little glass case and light it up and smoke it and it comes out a little smoky? I would recommend the pizza. I've been having the pizzas, that same recipe since the mid 80s.
Oh, nice.
The owner, Tom Anderson, is a homie of mine from the Dells. So he's used that same recipe for years.
That's awesome.
On the podcast, our guests followed the format for sharing their story like this. In segment 1, we talk about what was it like, so we'll get into Rainey's history and what happened to get him on the podcast. And in segment 2, we continue to talk about what happened and then what it's like now and get into Rainey's 5 suggestions that have allowed him to really thrive throughout his career. You grew up in Madison, Wisconsin. What was life like growing up for you? What part of Madison were you from?
Yeah, man, I'm from the South Side. Those who understand.
South Side, were you a South Side Raider?
I was a South Side Raider, man, bone crusher. Yes, I love the Raiders.
I love their uniforms.
Yeah, you know, it's great coaches, man, great community, great connection to the community, and I think the South Side Raiders kind of really made us who we were on the South Side of Madison, and also being known around the state.
They had a rep.
For who we were. And growing up on the South Side of Madison, I mean, many people know that, you know, Somerset Circle, that's where I grew up, you know, and then also Simpson Street. So between Somerset and Simpson Street, 2 really challenging areas to be a kid in. And growing up, even as an adult, you know, I really looked at that and said that kind of really helped me build that sense of care, love, support from the community, despite some of the challenges that were a part of that community.
All right, give me some landmarks now. Are you off Rimrock Road? Where?
Yeah, so on the south side there, Badger Road, Park Street.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So that was the heart of the South Side.
Similar to me, you were you were raised for the first couple of years of your life by a single parent mother, and then you had a stepdad that stepped in. Talk about your stepdad a little bit.
Yeah. My stepfather, Otis, man, he was an amazing human being. When you really think about, another man stepping in and raising other people's kids, he did just that. He's a big reason and a big part of why I'm who I am. Always gave great advice, always taught me about life, and to know that I was going to one day have my own kids, and taking some of that knowledge and wherewithal with me to support, raising my own kids. But he was just an amazing human being. And
he's there, so he might as well work with you.
100%. And I'll talk about the book later, but I do speak quite a bit about him in the book that I've published.
And then your mom. Go ahead.
And that woman, man, that is my heart. Love her dearly. She's done an amazing job of raising, I have 3 sisters and 2 brothers, and I'm the second to oldest. So, having younger siblings, but having an older sibling as well, and having her do the things that she's done to create who we all are. I always speak to people and I tell them, if you've never had a hug, get a hug from my mama, because she gives these big bear hugs, and they're just those hugs that show you that she cares about who you are, the type of person she is. She's been a trustee in her church for over 30 years, so that in itself says a lot about the heart and who you are as a person, and she's amazing.
Dude, when you started to talk about, when you said my mother or my mom, your smile lit up, and then I was bolted with this huge positive vibe. So that's exactly what I needed. I need to bottle that. You need to bottle that.
Yeah, my mom, man, she's my heart too.
So you have a family of your own, an amazing wife and 3 equally amazing daughters. Go ahead and spin some yarns about them.
My wife, man, is the reason I'm going to say
for the season,
100%. And the reason for me being the educator that I am. Been with her. She's my high school sweetheart. We've been together since we were 16. And then we have 3 amazing daughters, Raina, Riley, and Reagan. Raina.
Hey, by the way, I'm glad you remembered that, because sometimes I get put on the spot. I'm like, all right, what was my daughter's name again?
Yeah. Well, nice. I named, they all got R's, so I try to make it easy. But sometimes when I call one of them, I'm calling the wrong name of the other one. So it's, but they're amazing, man. My oldest, Raina, is a school social worker over at One City Schools in Madison. Big ups. My middle is Esther Tish. So she does lashes, facials, all that good stuff. And then my youngest is currently just wrapped up her freshman year of college in St. Cloud State, Minnesota, where she's also plays basketball there.
How hard was it for you to put on that hat that you have on right now, St. Cloud State? Being a Mankato dude.
Yeah, man, I struggled a little bit right away, because, I thought for sure she was going to go to Mankato, but her decision to go to St. Cloud, because it came down to St. Cloud and Mankato, and she decided St. Cloud, and, just jokingly, I didn't talk to her for a week. But ultimately, I want her to make her own decisions, and she did just that, and I'm really excited about the decision that she made, and being able to switch over and wear the red, white, and black has been it's been hurtful a little bit, but at the same time, I'm really enjoying it.
And you're a proud dad.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not only just her, but your other 2.
Absolutely.
And certainly with Madison Edgewood, high school class of 1996, a proud Crusader. You played football and basketball in high school and were very, very good. Give us a couple of highlights from each.
Yeah, I would say, just from the football side, man, Coach Minard was an amazing coach. The coaching staff that he had, the players that we had, we just were a really solid team. And as a senior, I ended up getting the All-City Player of the Year. So that in itself was really big for me, and kind of identified, again, on a different level, who you were as an athlete, and being
gave you a huge jolt of confidence.
It did. I would 100% agree with you on that. And it was really awesome to be that athlete in the football world, but then also on the basketball side, man. Playing for Coach Wetler was fun. I remember as a freshman, we had an undefeated season as freshmen. They kept that group together, and then from there, we all some people stayed, some people ended up, moving up to varsity and playing varsity and everything like that. And one night, man, I remember we were
grabbing some lines, running.
Yeah, no,
16, 12, 8, and 4.
It was in the middle of a game against Janesville Craig. We're up by like 2, and then I throw the ball inbounds, and it gets stolen. But I'm right there, and the guy's coming in for the layup. So I step in and I take that charge. And that was a really big highlight, I think, for me, because, I just made a mistake. I could have stood right there out of bounds and watched him make that layup, but the wherewithal of how Coach Zwettler has coached us to step in there, take that charge. A charge is a huge momentum shifter. And that was really big because we went on to win that game. And it was in the final seconds of the game that kind of happened. So that's one of my biggest highlights of changing the momentum of a game.
I know exactly. I mean, you gave me a little few tingles there, is that you could have, you inbounded it, you could have went over and whacked him on the arm, and now you got 2 things bad that went, and then instead of that, you completely changed the momentum of the game and take a charge. Yeah, 100%. Send shivers down the arms here.
Yeah, but I'll also say about Edgewood, it's one of the best things that ever happened to me. Attending Edgewood out of coming out of the hood. I would go to school every day, but then I also came back to the hood. So I wanted to really own who I am and want people to know that you should never lose sight of who you are, where you come from, despite what position you may have or what school you may attend. Your heart should still be where you're from as well.
After high school, you would receive a scholarship to play football at Mankato State University in Mankato, Minnesota. Did you receive any other offers?
Yeah, I received a couple other offers from different universities, D2 schools. I didn't really get any D1 offers, but I got a number of D2 offers. But it was also the only place that my wife and I both got scholarships offers from. Really? My wife was a big-time softball player, so she got a scholarship there, and I got a scholarship to Mankato, and we kind of did that together. We made that decision together to go to the same school.
I've heard that significant other, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, is undefeated in the recruiting process. So if you went, she went. If you went, if she went, you went.
Right, 100%.
Give us a couple of proud moments from your time with the Mavericks.
Yeah, as a freshman coming in, you have that coaches kind of look at it and say, you're a small fish in a big pond. Right. And that's true in most cases. And going off to college, it really shifts because there are athletes that are on that campus, on that team, and on those teams, bigger, better, faster, stronger, what have you. But I would say one of my biggest feats there was during spring ball after my redshirt year, winning the starting, outside linebacker spot from a senior. And that is something to look at and say, the work, the time, the effort, the not giving up moment kind of paid off for me because I was putting my all on the line. And I wasn't looking at it like I wanted to beat this guy out. I was looking at it that I just want to get on the field. I want to be a part of what we have going here. And that was a great opportunity. And the message to, kids out there and parents out there is to continue to put forth your best effort in all that you do. You never know whether it's someone gets injured or whether you are just someone that the coaches look at and see as someone that can be in that starting role for us while that backup is getting some time as well to relieve you to some degree. But putting your best foot forward, giving it your all, and not slacking, not taking those moments off that you can take off because you can. But putting that best foot forward, I think, really made a big difference for me. And that was huge for a youngster coming into a school where they had some really, really good athletes. They were from all over Chicago, from, Minnesota, from Iowa. Like they were from all over. I even had some kids there from California, So it was really one of those things that I really hung my hat on to say, like, I earned this. It wasn't just given to me.
I sometimes get the question pops in. And I'm thinking of myself driving and listening to the podcast right now and thinking, I hope Coach Cora asked him the question, what was the senior like after you had essentially kind of taken his position? What was he like? Yeah,
I would say that senior in particular, it was a moment of like, I would say disbelief for him right away. But I will say right off a week or so afterwards, he was there to support me. He wasn't someone that tried to, that crabs in a barrel type thing. He wasn't that individual. He was someone that supported me, when I was making mistakes or there's something I could have done differently or better, or congratulated me when I did things really well. Like, he was there. And that's one thing that to this day, I really appreciate about my guy, Cleo.
Hats off to Cleo.
They lead, right? And then there's other people watching how they are treating certain situations and whatever. But the wherewithal that some seniors have to kind of get behind and support and uplift can have a world of a difference on how your team perform, how people see each other in a society and such that we're in.
Yeah, there's so many ways to lead, and you don't lead by example. And in this case, it's leading by accepting. Yeah. And that's probably one leadership skill that maybe we don't often use as much that we maybe should use.
100%.
You graduate, receive your degree from Mankato, and you're hired for your first job at Ameritech in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. You worked there for a year and a half.
Yeah.
What kind of work were you doing there?
Yeah, I was actually signing people up for DSL service. That's a throwback.
What is that?
Yeah, that's a throwback. That's like their internet service that they were getting back in the day. So I kind of entered it all into the system, and then there was some site individuals that would get those orders and go out and then install your DSL service. And that was how you connected to the internet back then.
And I think that was high potent stuff. DSL.
And DSL was like the top of the line at the time. And now I don't think we even have DSL.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of it. You brought back some memories and then I can hear the you were trying to plug in and connect to the internet, and you were hoping had your fingers crossed. DSL probably wiped that out.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Education would enter your world.
Yeah.
That would take you out of corporate America and land you in the education profession for an outstanding 20-plus year career. Quickly tell us kind of your how you matriculated up.
Yeah, I would first off say, just right off the bat, my wife invited me into her class. She knew I didn't want to work with kids. I didn't like kids, just as part of my upbringing. When I was a youngster, some things kind of took place and happened in school for me. And I didn't like school. I didn't want to be a part of education at all. But you
can't see me. Well, some of you can probably see me, but I got my hand up. I didn't really care for school.
Yeah. And she invited me into her class, and I'm like, no, I'm good. And she kept on me. So I finally decided I'm going to go in, volunteer. That's the first time she asked me. 2 weeks later, I go in, volunteer. And then she asked me a third time. I go in, I volunteer. And I'm just like, you know what? Why aren't I working with kids? And that's when it really shifted for me. And that's when I ended up taking a job in the Verona School District as a cultural liaison, bridging home and school life for students of color. From there, I decided I wanted to get a teaching degree. So I ended up getting my licensure in physical education and health. And
great field, by the way.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Sometimes I wish I was still there, to be honest with you. But then from there, I wanted to become a administrator, just by way of some of the things that I've seen and experienced myself. And I really thought I could have an impact differently. So I went back to school, went to Viterbo, and got my master's in educational leadership. And then not too long after that, I decided that I wanted to lean into the superintendent world. And then I went through Edgewood College to get my doctorate.
Your most recent job as superintendent of Baraboo, Wisconsin, Baraboo School District, that's in my old neighborhood.
Yeah.
Because I'm from the Dells, and some people would say that, and we say that Baraboo is a suburb of the Dells, and Baraboo people say that, that's our little cross-eyed sister, the Dells. What was your time like in Boo Town, Circus Town?
I would say my time was actually pretty good. I mean, it's, there's a couple things that have kind of happened and transpired, but those things don't really reflect 100% of the community.
Or cast a shadow over.
Right. It doesn't cast a shadow over all the really good things that are happening there. And I think Baraboo for a number of years have had this shadow casted over it. Some of the things that have kind of taken place that have brought a bad rap to Baraboo, but ultimately I want to say that Baraboo, there's a really amazing people in Baraboo. There's amazing businesses, organizations, people, kids, and in my work and field that I work in is obviously education, but the kids are amazing. They are. And I think that's a big part of a community and a culture of a community being different and shifting as well.
My sister-in-law works for one of the parochial schools over there. My cousin is on the school board over there. And yes, there are good people over there, and I've got some really good friends. And, Baraboo is a good place.
Yeah, I agree.
Then an incident occurred that would cause a shift in your life. We're going to talk about here before we move on to segment 2, but because our listeners want to hear the coping skills you used to get through this and that incident and what life has been like for you so far, I need to talk about the sponsor one more time. Buck and Honey's has been with the Survive and Thrive 8791 crew since the beginning, with 4 locations in the Madison area. One is always near. People ask, why Buck and Honey's? Owner Tom Anderson places a high priority on the mental health of his employees. He has a mental health professional available for them should they need support. I don't know how many businesses go above and beyond their EAP, Employee Assistance Program, but Buck and Honey's does. May 31st, 2024, Baraboo High School is holding their graduation, and that incident I'm referring to occurred. Shortly after the district started handing out diplomas, a man approaches the stage and disrupts the evening's festivities. And I had an opportunity to view that a couple of times last night. After the situation is handled, graduation moves on as planned. It was pretty seamless, to be honest with you, at least in my opinion. Rainey will tell us how he survived and is thriving after leading the Baraboo School District for almost 4 years. Please stay tuned. Don't change that dial. You're not going to want to miss segment 2 of Survive and Thrive 8791. We will be back.
If you, a loved one, or someone you know is experiencing a physical, mental, or emotional crisis, there is help and resources out there. Contact NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness Helpline, at 1-800-950-6264. This is a free service providing information, resource referrals, and support to people living with a mental illness, their family, providers, and the public. United Way 211 is available 24/7, 365 and offers free confidential assistance. They connect people with the local programs and services that can help. Dial 211. Emergency Crisis Services, dial 911. The Suicide Prevention Lifeline, dial 988. To connect via web, chat, visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Along with those numbers, there is help. You just need to say 3 words. I need help. Now, back to the show.
We are back. Welcome back to segment 2 of Survive and Thrive 8791. I'm your host, Coach Tim Decora. The podcast is where I feature guests who share their story in hopes of helping others who may be struggling with what life throws at them. Rainey Briggs is here today to share his story about how he decided to leave a job where he continued the tradition of academic excellence while ensuring the educational approach evolved to prepare students for our rapidly changing society. Say that 5 times real quick. He hopes his story will help others who might be in a similar situation to survive and thrive, just like he has so far in life. Let's briefly talk about the incident that occurred on May 31st, 2024, and I'm going to let you talk about that and your feelings about what occurred, and then because the podcast has a mental health approach to it, we want to address that because people come here first for that and then maybe second for the stories. But let's go ahead and I'm going to let you talk.
So it was obviously, a graduation night. You got 300 kids in the gymnasium. This is a pinnacle.
By the way, I love that gymnasium.
Yeah, it is. It's a classic.
Scored a few points in there.
Well, you know what? It's a beautiful place, man, to play games. That's the one thing I will say. But in this particular particular case, we had the graduation taking place in there, man, and we have 300 kids ready to graduate, and they're at the pinnacle point in their lives and hitting that milestone of graduation, and then deciding to go on to college or to go off into some career field. And given this particular night, this man from the crowd decides he wants to come onto the stage and come at me and not allow me to shake his daughter's hand. Now, mind you, at this point, I have no idea who this guy is at this point, but I also know that I had a really crazy feeling before going into that gymnasium. And that feeling was like something isn't right. And to have this individual come onto the stage, I initially thought whatever I was thinking when I walked into the gym was happening. Like, this guy's getting me out of here, so whatever it is doesn't happen to me. And as soon as he opened his mouth and said, "No, you're not touching my effing daughter," that's when I knew something just wasn't right. And that's when I had to separate myself from him to kind of get a look to see if there was some weapon of some sort. And I say this because, you think about Will Smith and Chris Rock. You think about Dave Chappelle, when someone attacked him on stage, so those things kind of happened. And for years, I've always said to myself, man, I wish somebody would come up on the stage or do something like that. But you also are thinking about the kids that are in the space. What we tell kids every day is keep your hands to yourself, tell a teacher, no fighting, nothing aggressive. And that's what you hope happens, and people take those proper steps to inform people what's going on. And one thing that I didn't want to do is, number one, ruin the night for these seniors, right? Could I have, held them until somebody else? Absolutely, I probably could have. But I also know that it was really important to save that night for those kids and not respond in a way that was going to react or cause havoc, despite how I felt, because there was a fear. 100% there was a fear. I have no idea who this guy is up on the stage. Why is he up here on the stage? But at the same time, wanting to make sure that those kids had the night that they deserve.
The teacher, the educator, all of those things, I think, came out as you're telling the story, and I'm reliving it from watching it on YouTube before last night when I'm setting this whole thing up. I'm watching it and how you handled, and you can't see anything that's going on. You can hear it a little bit, but the way you handle it was exactly like an educator, teacher. Are the kids okay? I'm okay, but let's move forward and put the kids first. And literally, when I was watching it last night, there wasn't more than a couple of minutes before my cousin is up. She's handing out the diploma, shaking hands, and then everybody's back in line, and there's hooting and hollering, and the kids that are the graduates that are sitting there are hooting and hollering, and it's like nothing happened. But the way you handle it, the way the people on the stage handled it, and whoever else came in to aid you made it seamless. And then let's put the focus, take the focus back off of what happened here, and let's put the focus where it needs to be right now, and that is to honor the graduates of 2024. I'm glad things worked out. After that graduation incident and the aftermath, you had some anxiety at a sky-high level. What was going on?
There was a number of things that was kind of taking place. There was threats that were coming into my family. There was threats that were coming in and going to, TV stations that were then needing to be passed on to the police departments. There were people who were really looking at the situation and saying that, I overblew the situation. And to me, I will argue with anybody, and I'm not even an arguer, to be honest with you. No matter what, anytime anyone puts their hands on you, I don't care who you are, what you are, what race you are, whatever, it should not matter. You should not be putting your hands on anyone else. That level of security that, I thought I may have had was broken. Right. That's number one. The threats towards my family, the need to have a police officer sitting outside of our home, for a number of days, the ongoing messages that were coming in some were hurtful, some were really supportive. Right. But when you're getting a mixture of both supportive, messages and a mixture of, hateful messages, you don't focus on the supportive one. You really focus on the negative ones because you're looking at yourself like, what did you What did you do wrong? How did I mess up this situation? So all those things kind of played a big part in knowing that now you had to have a police officer patrolling your area because of this particular incident, and all you were doing was serving in your role as the superintendent. That's tough. And that brought a lot of anxiety because you never knew what was going to happen. You never knew when you're out cutting your grass, is somebody going to come up and say something to you or do something to you? Your kids, my kids are still going to different things. I have a daughter that's up in Minnesota. I have a daughter that was working in Madison. So you have all these things kind of happening that you're wondering, are all your people going to be safe? And that level of anxiety when it's your kids, it changes how you think and see and go about doing things. So those things really played a huge part. And not only that, I still had to lead a district, right, of kids, staff, and to know that there were certain people feeling a certain way about that situation that was hurtful towards me was really hard to swallow.
Thinking about a couple of things you're talking about as far as the safety goes. I mean, you're walking out of your house and you had football days. You've got your head on the swivel, check right, check left, see what else is, what's going on, looking for things that could come your way. Not a fun way to have to live your life like that. During these times of mental struggles, what were you doing? Because people are going to say, now, what was he doing? Because I've had that same exact thing happen, or that same exact thing happened to my neighbor. What can I pull from the podcast? What can I pull from Rainey Briggs and share this with my own situation or somebody else's? What were you doing to cope with that anxiety?
Yeah, there was a couple of different things. One, there's some 5 steps of happiness that I really leaned into, and I'll talk about those in a second. But initially, I really leaned on my wife and my kids. I leaned on my family, my mom, my sisters and brothers, my wife's parents, some of my mentors that I have known for years. And there's also other leaders around the country, the world, that reached out, just engaging in some conversations with them, and knowing that I had that momentum of gained support from individuals that really understood the role that I was in as a superintendent, may not have ever experienced what I've experienced, but understand the role in which I was in. But those individuals played a huge part in me leaning into these 5 things that I'm going to mention here. And those 5 steps of happiness, which I think have carried me for years. Whenever there have been moments of time, I've really leaned into these things and really thinking about my own happiness. I had to own my own happiness. I couldn't let this situation, I couldn't allow someone else to continue to cause me to not have control over my own happiness. And number 2, I had to challenge the story. I had to change, how people wrote or how people see the story that is being written and talked about. There are people who have said this wasn't a racial incident. Well, I've never once said it was. Right? I've always said this particular incident, the only person that can tell you whether this was racist or not is the individual that came onto that stage. I'm not here to tell you that a situation was racist, but I know I had to challenge the story that was being written, right? And a part of that is, how you felt, what kind of transpired in that moment, but I'm not the individual that came on the stage. That person is the only one that can tell us. But so for me, I had to challenge my own story, and I had to challenge the story that people were kind of portraying to me, that I wasn't attacked. This person didn't put his hands on me. Well, video doesn't lie, right? It's there.
Did you notice any change in your demeanor, your anxiety, when you started talking about what happened? And then I'm anxious. I'm feeling, my blood pressure feels high. I'm feeling lightheaded at times. Did you notice anything starting to change when you started to talk about it? Because I'm sure there was probably, I'm going to guess that you wanted to suppress some of this stuff, and okay, that didn't happen. Did it really happen? No, I'm just gonna bury that for now because I got some work to do. I got to finish the school year. Some point you probably said, "Hey, I got to talk about this."
Yeah, it's really interesting that you asked that question, because the particular night that this happened, the very next day at 11 o'clock, we were having my daughter's graduation party. And there's hundreds of people who came to the graduation party, coming and going all day. I didn't say anything about this to anybody, right? So we just carried on with the graduation. So I didn't want to take away from my own daughter's biggest moment. Did I feel a certain way about it? Like, did I have anxiety about it? Absolutely. Did I feel like I had to suppress it? Absolutely. Because I didn't want to take away from my daughter's biggest moment. And we were also preparing for that moment for her. The moment of, I got to a point where I'm like, you know what? And it was probably about a week, maybe even a week and a half, 2 weeks later, that I really felt like I could speak about it, right? Because I processed it. I would say for about, until that Monday, this happened on a Friday, until that Monday, I had no idea who the guy was. I didn't know that it was a parent of a kid that had a situation in school 3 years prior, right? So until I got that clear understanding of who he was, okay. I know the situation.
Now I kind of remember.
Yes. So it was that moment that I felt like, okay, I can speak about this, but I also know I still had to protect that student, right? Because of the nature of what happened 3 years prior. So I had to protect that student while also thinking about my own anxiety and then why did this happen and how did this happen? So I did have moments of suppression. I had moments of anxiety of not really knowing and understanding and asking myself, why did this happen? Why didn't this individual come to me 3 years ago if there was an issue that he felt was not handled right or whatever? But then again, I had to look at this and say, I'm at a place, and I got to a place where I was ready to speak about it because I've been able to process how I control my own happiness. I've been able to process and think about what type of community, when I think about the beloved community that we want to have, in Baraboo, and the people that I want to surround, obviously myself with.
Yeah, you had a built-in coping skill that you took the spotlight that was on you on that Friday night. It was a Friday, right?
Yep, Friday night.
That spotlight that was on you on Friday night, May 31st, and you shifted that. And not a lot of people have that, but you shifted it on your daughter and your family and et cetera. And then finally, that Monday when it was just you, maybe on that car ride to Baraboo where you had an opportunity to reflect. Not many people, not many men share those kinds of feelings, and we need more dudes talking about what you and I are talking about today. Yeah. Talk about what's going on, express your feelings, share your emotions, and then let people come in and help you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm glad you talked about the suppression, but you started talking about that. This is gonna help a lot of people. So you resigned effective February 21st, 2025, and with that, you mentioned quite a few really cool things in your bio about how you were feeling. And they are as follows. I'm at peace, to be honest. You had someone tell me recently you have your smile was back. You seem happier. You feel happier and relaxed and not worried about who might be coming for me when all I want to do is make sure that kids, staff, and families feel supportive, loved, cared for, and have a sense of belonging. Go ahead and just, for about a minute, talk about some of those things and how you're feeling now.
Just my wife told me not too long ago, she said, you have become hard-hearted, and that's not even close to the type of person I am. I'm a fun, happy, excited person usually. And when your significant other share that with you, and someone who's known you since you were 16 and they've gotten to see all the different walks in life of who you are and how you are, to hear that, it hit different. And that was a big part of me also making that decision, because what I didn't want to do is, even if I go into another job, I didn't want to leave that job on June 30th and go into a new job on July 1st and have that still same hard heart. Those things that I cope with, really thinking about, feeling at peace. Like when you feel at peace about something, not much other things matter that can kind of cause you to feel like, you're doing the wrong thing, right? Or you're letting people down, that kind of thing. Because I really felt like being at peace was being happy around the things that you want to do and how you want to do them without other people taking stabs at you or other people treating you a certain way. And enough was enough for me in the process of the whole superintendency, to be honest with you.
Well, that leads into all of those good vibes and how you're feeling, and you're feeling relaxed, relaxed enough to do a book.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the book.
Absolutely.
Go ahead and let her rip on the book, man.
When I decided that I was going to leave in February, I was on the tail end of finishing this book. And the book title is Beyond the Label, A Leader's Journey from IEP to EDD. So the IEP is an individual education plan that I had when I was a youngster in school and never really saw myself getting to the point of whether it's graduating from high school, getting my master's, or in no way at all getting my doctorate. So this is really outlining and laying out for people the journey that I've taken as an individual from the time that I was a youngster to who I am today. And I think this book really also gives a lot of different strategies and a lot of different reflective questions for you as an individual to think about that can support you through some of this. I also look at this book and say it could be really used in a school setting when you think about kids who have IEPs, some of the things that they may be going through that's causing them to still be in that same rut without support in their minds, right? Although they may be getting supports from teachers, they may feel like those supports aren't there. So how can you as a leader, how can you as a special education teacher, how can you as a superintendent lean into this text and bring out some things that can be utilized or transformed into your current systems to really support you in helping students get out of those ruts?
Mm-hmm. And the other thing that kind of coincides with what you're doing now with the book, and then you're also going to be appearing at some different conferences in the future and talking and keynote speaking.
Yeah. So I have a really big one coming up here in July. It's the first 6 weeks of school conference, which will be in Washington, D.C. And this particular conference, for those that are out there that knows responsive classroom, there's also, and that's a classroom management, some different classroom management strategies and skills that can be put in place to support our educators in building a community in their classrooms that's really supportive of students' growth, students' learning, and students feeling like they belong. And then there's also another side to that is the Fly 5 social emotional learning curriculum that exists through also the same Center for Responsive Schools that will be tied to the delivery of this keynote and also my book, and how the book walks side by side with Responsive Classroom and Fly 5 and the first 6 weeks of school.
Well, we'll definitely have to put the link in for your book in the post that I share, the promos, and also mention some of the keynote places that you could be coming up in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is where the subscribers and followers and listeners take out the notebooks, pens, and pencils and jot some things down. Here are Rainey's 5 suggestions that have allowed him to survive and thrive, essentially while changing careers. But I think this has been his blueprint all along. So here's what you shared, and I'm gonna toss these in on underhand softball style. Can you hit a softball?
I got you. Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Out the park.
Out of the park. I'm going to have you hit on these for about a minute.
I got you.
Okay, 60 seconds. Number 1, own your own happiness. And you had a little descriptor here. So be responsible for the things that bring happiness to your heart. And you already kind of touched on that, but go ahead and hit that again.
Yeah. You're responsible for things that bring happiness to your heart. You know, who you're surrounding yourself with. What are you doing? Are you causing certain things to happen that shouldn't happen, right? You are the one that has control over that.
Number 2, change your own story. Change the way you talk to yourself. You wrote the story. Change the dialogue. Go ahead and hit that.
How often are you talking positively about yourself, and how often are you sharing different stories that are uplifting about the work that you do, the impact that you have, so that you can have a story that's not solely negative or people can draw a negative light on yourself?
Number 3, enjoy the journey, not the destination. Celebrate all along the way. If you don't see yourself as valuable, no one else will. Go ahead and hit that.
Yeah. Enjoying the journey. I've never reached a destination. I've always enjoyed the journey. And I think enjoying the journey allows you to really see and get a clear picture of the things that are in the way that you can possibly overcome, and others can be brought into the fold to help you overcome those things. So utilizing your resources, utilizing your mentors, your peers in a different way that can allow you to enjoy those things as you're heading towards that destination that we probably will never reach.
Number 4, make relationships count. If you don't like you, it makes it really hard for others to like you. There's no fruit without relationships. You can't be fruitful without relationships that are meaningful and purposeful. Number 4, go ahead and hit that.
Yeah. Bottom line, if you don't like you, nobody else will. Right. So you have to really like who you are. You have to believe and have value in who you are so that people understand what you're about.
And the last one, number 5, balance work with play. You can't do all of either one. You must balance. People get a better perspective of who you are. It's not what you leave to them that makes them great. It's what you leave in them. Go ahead and hit that.
Yeah. Balance and work with play. Bottom line is you can't play all the time. You can't work all the time. You have to have a really good balance of understanding when it's time to get work done and when it's time to enjoy the fruits of the work that you've done.
What a great episode. I'm so glad you could join the Survive and Thrive 8791 crew today. Your story and how you've thrived after a challenging time in your life and how things have come about. Your story reminds us all to have coping skills or mental health tools in the toolbox when a person has something that challenges them. And despite that, you have survived and thrived. Our call to action. Rainey Briggs just shared his story and what it's like to live to the fullest despite some of the things that have occurred. Here are Rainey's 5 suggestions to thrive. Number 1, own your own happiness. Number 2, challenge your own story. Number 3, enjoy the journey, not the destination. Number 4, make relationships count. And number 5, balance work with play. As we close another great episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, are there any final thoughts, Rainey?
Yeah, I would just say, life is really hard. There's a lot of balls thrown at us and we're juggling them each and every day, not just in education, but just in life in general. And my biggest thing to anyone that's listening, anyone out there in this world, continue to focus on being just great human beings. That makes a difference. What can we do to support others that are possibly going through some of the challenging times that we want to make sure survive and thrive? That's really important to think about how you can be the best human being to support them.
Life is really hard. Don't make it harder by the decisions you make or the actions you take. And we go all the way back to you inbounding that ball against Janesville Craig, and you let the ball go, and you could have made it harder by fouling that person and being angry, but you didn't. You went and, well, what's the next best thing I can do to fix this? And you took the charge and you changed the momentum and you won that game. And I think that kind of sums up who you are as an individual, is that things happen and analyze them and see how you can make them better based upon who you are.
Absolutely.
So amazing episode. On our next episode of Survive and Thrive 8791, we will have another amazing guest in the Buck and Honey's remote studios who will share how they learn to survive and thrive. If you have a story to share or you know someone who does, please reach out to me at tdecor@gmail.com. Until next time, hang in there with whatever you happen to be going through, and with hard work, dedication, and determination, you can survive and thrive. Until next time, take care.
Peace.